Welcome to Music Tech Explained, the visual approach. My name is Edgar Rothermich, author of the best-selling book series Graphically Enhanced Manuals. In this video, I will show the exciting new features of this massive Logic Pro 10 update 10.5. There's so much stuff to cover, so let's dive right into it. I also released a new book, Logic Pro 10 What's New in 10.5, available on my website logicprogem.com. On 230 pages, I provide more detailed information about the various features and changes that I didn't have time for in this video. I explain all that with diagrams and graphics that you won't find anywhere else. First, a quick overview of the big new features in 10.5. Live loops. Here we look at the regular project in Logic, which is the workspace, and you have the regions on a timeline, and you can select the timeline and the playhead plays your project. That's how we are used to Logic Pro 10. How about we add a new thing and something that looks like that? Anything familiar to it? Because that is pretty much similar to Ableton Live and pretty much the same components. So you can go nuts with that because you can have both. So you have the workspace, you can have the live loops, or you can have both together. And of course it needs a lot of zooming in and out. So on the left side you have your live loops, on the right you have your workspace, and you have the most important element that is in the middle, the divider column. And here you can just select which one you want to play when the playhead is moving. The live loops on the left or the regions in the workspace. So right now I'm selecting only the live loops on the left. But you can mix and match. So we have the track as the same for the live loops and for the workspace. And you can, for example, you can start with the, let's stop everything. And you want to have only specific tracks here playing from the region. Go right through the walls we played. And you add the live loops to it. I need you every day. And you can see the potential. You can use everything on the left and the right mixed together. You can just have the traffic cop here, which one of the track you play, and the editing feature for the live loops, let alone all the graphics. It is amazing. And you can go really deep. Not only you put a region on one of these cells, you can add multiple regions in the cell, you can edit the cells, you can put automation in it. It goes really, really deep, and that is where you really have to learn and read on it, because you cannot figure that out just by trial and error. So for that, I show a little bit later in the later section of this video. And to get really into all the details, check out the book What's New in 10.5. Live loops is not the only big feature in 10.5. There are quite a few more. Let's start with the first one, step sequencer. It introduces a new type of region, the pattern region. So to start with a step sequencer, you create a new pattern region, and that opens the step sequencer. That is not only the standard step sequencer that you find in other sequencers, software or hardware. The Logic team took that to a complete different level. So you can use your standard step sequencer stuff, but it is much deeper. For example, use step sequencer for automation. Just wrap your head around that and see what you can do with that creatively. So it's pretty much simple with the interface, but you can learn that and then go step by step, so to speak, deeper into all the more advanced features. So the interface pretty much looks the same like any other sequencer. just stop it. You have the different steps and you can arrange that. You can select which step you want to do. So that's a typical thing. But as I said, you can go much deeper into it. Next one, a brand new software instrument plugin, the Quick Sampler. As the name says, it is a sampler, but can do only one quick sample. So you can do only one sound at a time. And user interface, super simple. You drag any kind of sample into it. You have different options, original, or you can do some optimized import features. And then you see the interface right there. You have the LFOs, matrix, modulation, you have the pitch, the filter, amplifier. You have 3 envelope generator right position underneath the individual module. Very simple to use and very quick to modify, and using all the standard feature, beautiful interface, quick and easy to use the Quick Sampler. The main use for the Quick Sampler is basically for if you have any kind of sound effects that you want to play in your project or film scoring or whatever you use for, or for any kind of drums. But the main use for the Quick Sampler is in the Drum Machine Designer, because the Drum Machine Designer has been kind of revamped using the Quick Sampler as its main sound source. Here's a Drum Machine Designer window. You have the typical kit controls. Down there you have the pad controls, but as you can see here, you have direct access to the individual sound sources. So each sound source now is a separate Quick Sampler. Each Quick Sampler, each pad, before it was used cell, now it's called pads, is a single individual Quick Sampler software instrument plugin. As you can see here on the layout of the Drum Machine Designer, you have individual channel strips, each one loaded with its individual Quick Sampler plugin. And editing is super easy, now much more improved. So you can select the individual pads and you can see the sound wave down there. And the sampler details, which means we have the synthesizer controls. You have the pitch, the filter, amp, and even modulation matrix. Much more deeper and much more elegant to use, and it doesn't use the ultra beat anymore, and major improvement for the Drum Machine Designer. Next up, the sampler. The sampler is, drumroll, now the EXS24 2020. Finally, it was updated, and this is how it looks like. It is combined in one single plugin window, and it is quite deep, as you can see. Has different modules, so you can really elegantly choose between the interfaces, zoom in, zoom out. So a lot of stuff you have to get used to, a lot of stuff to explore and to relearn. But finally, we have the new update of the EXS24. Next one is another software instrument plugin, the Drum Synth, which does nothing else than just one sound of a drum sound, which is a synthesized drum sound, not a sampler. I will go into that detail a little bit later in that video. Here's another improvement of the Drum Machine Designer. If you open the library browser, select Electronic Drum Kit and Drum Synth Kit, you get an electronic drum kit. But if you open the mixer and look what's behind that drum kit, you can see that each channel strip of each subtrack is not a quick sampler, it is a loaded drum synth plugin. So the Drum Machine Designer uses the drum synth as a sound module. And now if you open the Drum Machine Designer window and select any of the pads, what you're going to see, the actual user interface of the drum synth. And so you select a pad, you have that drum synth of that specific sound, and you can go ahead and change the sound parameter. And you can see all the different pads are the different user interfaces for that individual drum synth, that sound category and module that is loaded. Not only that, you can mix and match. For example, these are all drum synth. But if you select the snare, and it automatically in the library browser, it shows you all the snares. And if you select a different snare sound, for example, that one, then that drum kit piece is not a drum synth. It is a quick sampler that you can see here on the controls. So now you have access to the parameters of that quick sampler. If you select the kick is from the drum synth, and you can see that down here. Drum synth, quick sampler, drum synth. So you can really mix and match different modules, different plugins, and you can even load the Ultrabeat if you want to. So extremely flexible and very fast and very fun to create your drum machine sounds. Then we have the remix FX, which is pretty much the same as you know from the GarageBand iOS. And then we have the auto sampler, which you might have used in MainStage. So now it's also included in Logic Pro 10, 10.5. And in my manual, I'll show you how to use it. Even you can cipher in all your iOS plugins, a synthesizer that you use, and you can really use the auto sampler to create your own sampler instruments in Logic. So you can really use it as a sampler instrument. And last but not least, we have one new addition. If you look here at the capture recording button, you will find capture in stop mode. And yes, that's exactly what it does. During the playback, it will be recorded, but now you can actually be in stop mode. Noodle around, jam around, play anything what you want, and we'll say, oh, that was good. Then you just click the capture recording button, and then it will be right there. So you don't even have to think to hit the play button, just play around on your MIDI keyboards, and if you like what you just played, one button, Shift R, and it will be right there. And in the manual, I even explain how you use the smart tempo. You can adapt it right away with the tempo. It analyzes the tempo what you played and put it into your current project that you're working on at the moment. That's a quick run through about the big new features, a little bit more later in this video. Here's a quick run through all the smaller new features and changes in Logic 10.5. Drag import file region to the track header. What that means is now you can take any file that you have on the desktop and drag it directly onto the track header. And you can see if you drag it over the area below the last track, you have a couple of options. You can import that file directly in the quick sampler, different option, original optimize, which I get into later. You can drag it directly into Drum Machine Designer or Alchemy, different option, additive, granular, and spectral import. If you drag it over specific tracks, for example, on the Alchemy, only the Alchemy options pop up. If you drag it over to the sampler, so you add that to a specific zone with different import options, or you can drag it over a Drum Machine Designer and it adds that directly to the Drum Machine Designer, that file that you drag over. And not only that, you can even drag any kind of region, for example, audio region. If you drag it over, you get the same pop-up menus. Very flexible, very cool. Next one is drag region to desktop. It's the other way around. Let's say you have a region that you want to export. Usually you would select that and go to File, Export, Selection as Audio File. You don't have to do that because now you can just drag that file directly on the desktop and oops, there it is, right there. Next one is automatic marker colors. Now if you go to the preference setting under display tracks, you have a new selector called marker colors. You can have static, which is the old way, it creates just gray markers, or you can add colors to it. So Logic creates either a set of 24 or 96 colors. So the way it looks like is, let's say I create colors, markers, and instead of creating gray markers, it goes through the color palette and assigns the different colors to it. So, and then of course later you can go in and recolor them however you want them. Record automation with MIDI region. What does that mean? First you enable the automation view, show height automation, with that button or key command A. And now if you go to any kind of software instrument track, you click on the automation mode button to open that menu. And here you have the different options. Retouch latch right, you see one new option, which is called record automation with MIDI region. You can toggle that, enable or disable that. If it's enabled, then the following thing happens. If you record a MIDI track, your MIDI region on that one, so you play your MIDI keyboard, at the same time you can move all your controllers, your plug-in controllers, whatever you have, and that will not be recorded as track automation, but as region automation. So it's been recorded directly into the MIDI region as fader events, in addition to all the MIDI events. The next new feature is in the loop browser, and that is a brand new Apple loop type, the pattern loop. If we open the loop browser, you have this little button here where you can select specific loop types. And if you look closely, here we have a new one called the pattern loop. In addition to audio loop, software loops, and drummer loops, that's the number 4 pattern loop. Unfortunately, it is also yellow, the same like drummer loops. I don't know why. There are plenty of other colors, but they choose the same one. So if you select the pattern loop, then your loop browser will display only the pattern loop that you have available. And if I select one, I can drag it directly into the workspace and it will show up as a new pattern region. So it's not an audio region or MIDI region or drummer region. It is a new type of region called the pattern region. And if you double click on that one, it opens the step sequencer. That's exactly where you program the pattern region. More about the step sequencer later, and that is the addition of the pattern loop. There's one more addition in the loop browser, and that is down there at the gear button. If you click on it, there's a new option called auto leveling. What that does is, for example, if you have a lot of loops, let's say something in the range of 20,000 or even higher, and you go through to select, to preview them, all the different Apple loops might not be recorded and normalized, so you might encounter some level jumps, and this could be annoying if you go through and preview a lot of Apple loops. That is now gone, because if that option is enabled, auto leveling, Logic automatically normalizes the playback, so it doesn't affect the Apple loops, it's just a playback option. So when you preview the different Apple loops, you don't encounter these level jumps, and it's a more nicer way to preview all those Apple loops. Next one is an addition in the project settings. If you go to the audio window under general, you see under the pen law selector, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 new selections, minus 4.5 dB and so on. If you're not familiar with pen laws, I have a free tutorial on my logicprogem.com website, where you get a little more information what that important pan law is about. Another new feature is regarding the activating and deactivating channel strips. For example, I have one channel strip here in Alchemy that is disabled, so you can see that by the dimmed plugin buttons. And if that is disabled and you open the plugin menu, you would see that option here, activate plugins. That was renamed because before it was named activate channel strip, which was not really correct, because what you enable or disable is not the channel strip, you enable or disable the plugins. And so that's just a little correction, now it's more accurate. So you see now they are all disabled, and if you want to activate them, and boom, now it activates the plugins, not the channel strip. The next one is on the compressor. That's a little oversight. I don't know how many people know about that. The sidechain on the compressor, usually it has the different option, whatever channel strips you have, so you can use it as a sidechain on the channel strip. And if you don't select any, you have the none selection up here as the first option. That was renamed now to internal because that is actually correct. The reason for that is even before, if you didn't select any of this option of the other channel strip as a sidechain, the compressor always had the sidechain enabled, and what was enabled was that section here. So you always had a filter or an equalizer available when you enable that here, and that was always placed in the sidechain. So that means there was always an internal sidechain enabled, and that is now reflected with that new naming option here. So by default it says internal, because you never have no sidechain enabled, because the internal sidechain is always on. Another new addition is called slip and rotate. If you're familiar with video editing, you know what slip editing is. Basically, let me walk you through very quick. So I explain all that in my manual. So it's just like a little preview. If you select any audio region or MIDI region, it works on both. And you go to edit under move, you have these 4 new options: slip left, slip right, rotate left, and rotate right. And you have remember these key commands: control option, left arrow, and right arrow. What it means is, instead of moving where you move the actual region, in this case, so that's the same audio region like that, so that's the whole length. So I truncated that region, you see that, the underlying media, from left to right, and also truncated the right edge. If you use the just striking left and right, you move that segment, that portion of that audio media left or right. But if you want to keep the left and right position, but you want to slip the underlying media, that's what the audio, the slip edit is for. So I'm holding control option and the right arrow and left arrow. If you look closely, the underlying media is changing, but the left and right border stays the same. And the way how far it is slipping left and right, that you can see that under the whatever nudge value you have selected here. So the nudge value is used for the actual nudge command, for the slip, and also for the rotate command. Rotate command is similar. It also keeps the left and right borders, but it rotates. So if you move the underlying media to the right, it doesn't move in the next media on the left and on the right into the picture. It uses the same media, but then it rotates. So whatever you move to the right, what's falling off the right edge is moved back to the left edge. It sounds complicated, but it's not, so you have to just play around a little bit. And as I said, I explained that in the book. If you do it 1 or 2 times, and then you get the hang of it, and it's very useful and was really demanded a lot by users to be added to Logic, and now it is. Another nice little addition, also requested a lot. If I show all the available global tracks, if I move or if I truncate any region, see what happens now. We have the vertical guides all the way up to the ruler. So now whenever you truncate or you move any kind of region, you have the reference right there, so you know which bar or which position on the ruler you move that. One other nice little feature are the added color adapt icons. If you right click on any on the track icons, you see that pop over window, so you have all the different icons, and now in each category you have new icons, the gray ones. But these are not gray, they are just color adaptive, or whatever that name is. So that means if I select any kind of icon, so here the microphone icon, and I change the color of the track, you see, that icon adapts to the current color. If you have any icon like before, any kind of bell, that's just an image. The picture, it's not affected by whatever color you choose here. Next one is the channel EQ, a lot of small little details. Very quick, here you have the scale. It's changed a little bit. I think it's a big improvement because you can see the different frequency and they're nicely arranged in a more logarithmic way. You can change the horizontal line up and down depending on if you need more resolution in the positive or in the negative way. And you have tons of menus now popping up. For example, if you right click on the left, you can change the range for the spectrum analyzer. If you right click on the right, you have different dB scale modes you can choose from. Down there, visual master gain is an option that here, if you have a master gain, this was the old way, so the master gain is added to whatever frequency response curve you have. If you don't want to see that, just disable that and you see only the frequency response that you select here. Lots of the selection that you had here in the details view are now moved to the actual button. So just right click on the button here. You have the different analyzer resolution, the different gain to coupling strength, and so on. Just click around and right click especially, and then you see all the different options. Same thing here with the slope. You can right click on it and you have the different filter slopes that you can choose from here. And you still can use the old way just by dragging the slope value up and down. Okay, that sums it up about my coverage of the new Logic Pro 10 update 10.5. There's a lot to explore, to try out, and to incorporate into your workflow. For more detailed explanations of all the new features and changes that I didn't have time for in this video, please check out my new book, Logic Pro 10, What's New in 10.5, with information that you won't find anywhere else. Don't forget to read my free Logic and Pro Tools tutorials and check out the books in my graphically enhanced manual series. By the way, on Apple's iBook Store, you can download free samples of all my books in the special interactive multi-touch iBooks version, the best way to learn a software application. All the links are available on my website, dingdingmusic.com.